Morning everyone, and welcome to the Nomadic Arts Workshop. We're here at Arizona Falls Concrete in Las Vegas at Mike Meredith's place, and I'm going to show you how I do my sealing today. Everybody's been asking about this, and so we're going to walk you through the processes of how we use water-based acrylics to lay down our sealer, or to put our sealers on, and hopefully this will help you guys out. So initially we got a piece of raw concrete. We're going to go ahead and wet it out just a little bit so our sealer doesn't streak on us. So got just a damp cloth here. We're going to get rid of the excess water because I don't want a lot of water. I just want it moist on that surface. I'm going to take that and wet out the surface. Come on now. Okay, so again, we don't want it super wet. We're just trying to get it damp a little bit. Then we're going to go ahead and take our microfiber pad. We're going to take our sealer, and we're going to wet out our pad. And again, we don't want this super damp. We only want it to be just wet. Or damp, not super wet. After we've got that wetted out, we're going to go ahead and wet out our surface. Then take your pad, now when you do your second pass, you only want to overlap just a little bit, otherwise you're building up that acrylic on there, and we don't want to do that. Now when I do that second pass, technically I'm going to exaggerate this, but I'm going like this with the pad, so I'm putting my pressure on the back end where I'm overlapping that little bit. I'm just letting it just barely touch that surface. Otherwise we can get a built-up line in there, because basically where we've overlapped, we put on 2 coats of the sealer. We don't want to do that. So basically what you just saw was the first process of doing this. Typically I'll do 2 coats, 45 minutes minimum between coats. After my second coat, I'll do my slurry, and then I'll do that same process to finish it out. So we're going to go ahead and let this dry up. 45 minutes, we'll come back and do another coat, and then we'll do some slurry on it and finish this thing out. Hopefully this helps you guys out. Okay, so we're back to do our second coat. What you didn't see on the outside of the video is in between coats I'll wet out my pad. I'll fold her over and stick it in a Ziploc bag. That keeps it fresh for the next coat, so that it doesn't crystallize on your microfiber pad. So we pulled that out. We're going to go ahead and lay down. We don't need to wet the surface anymore. Now that we've got that first coat on, that was the only time that we needed to wet out that surface. We also don't need to pre-wet this because we pre-wetted it before we put it in the Ziploc bag. Again, that way there it doesn't crystallize. If it's fairly dry, then sitting in the Ziploc bag it could crystallize on you as well. So we wetted it out already. So we're just going to wet a little bit on the surface. And remember, as we're doing this, the whole idea is to lay this stuff down super thin. We're trying to get no initial buildup. At the end of the day, we're going to have anywhere between 8 and 10 coats on here, but the buildup should still end up being probably no more than a mil when we're done. So again, we'll wet the surface out. Go ahead and get our sides. That easy, folks. No more breaking out the HVLP, no more worrying about sanding, no more worrying about is the stuff going to delaminate. It's that quick and easy, you guys. So we'll go ahead and let this one dry another 45 minutes. Then we're going to do our slurry coat, sand it off, and then we'll start doing our final passes. Okay, slurry's all finished up, so now we're going to go ahead and lay on our next coat. Same situation. We've already got this here, it's been wetted out when we finished up the last coat. So we're just going to put another quick spritz on. Now that you've already got a couple layers on there, you don't have to worry about putting too much on because it's going to start spreading a lot more because our pores are already starting to seal up. So it doesn't take very much at this point. And remember, the whole concept of doing this is laying on thin coats. So don't saturate the surface, don't over-wet it, don't over-wet this. You don't want to have stuff like that there. We don't need extra pooling on the surface. We just need enough to wet it out. Okay, so now at this point, we're going to go ahead and this one here's got some residue and whatnot on it from the little bit of slurry that was still on the surface. We wiped it down, cleaned it up, but it still left a little bit of residue. So I'm going to take this one here, I'm going to rinse it clean in water, get rid of all the sealer that's on there, and then I keep them in a 5-gallon bucket with water in it until I take them home and throw them in the washing machine. The biggest thing with these pads is don't let them ever get dry with any kind of sealer on them. Otherwise they crystallize and you may as well throw them away, because when you go to try and use them, they're going to leave little streak marks and drag marks on the surface. So we're going to rinse this one out, set it off to the side. All of our next passes, and we now have 3 coats of sealer on there. Our first 2, then slurry, now our first coat here. All the consecutive passes hereafter, another 6 or 7, we're going to do with the new microfiber pad. So that should be it for now, and we'll be back in another 45 minutes. Okay, so we've got our third coat on there, and now what I'm going to do in between the next couple of few coats is we're going to hit it with a brown Scotch-Brite pad. The green are a little too abrasive. They tend to leave a little bit of streak or scratch marks in it, but those can be pulled out later or hidden later with the wax that we're going to put on top, which is just another water-based acrylic wax, not a beeswax or a carnauba or whatnot. So you can't see this in the video. Yeah, maybe I'll go ahead and pull you guys in for a sec here. Yeah, you can't really see it, and I'm sorry for that, you guys. But there's a few streak marks in here that we're going to go ahead and buff out. And so the concept is that we buff those streak marks out before we lay that next coat in. And the main reason for that is because if we put another coat over top of those streaks, they're going to get trapped in, and it's going to be a heck of a lot harder to pull them out later. So we just do a quick buff on that surface. Knock that acrylic down, knock those streaks down. The other thing too that I like about acrylics is the fact that we can do this in between coats. So the whole idea is if you've got a bunch of other work going on in your shop and you don't have time to, not cut wood or not be grinding or whatnot, you have the capability to buff this stuff out. So if a little dust in the air settles on it, not a big deal. You're able to just take and buff it down with your Scotch-Brite pad and then lay another coat of sealer on. That makes it really slick for not having to shut your whole shop down just to be able to do a couple coats of sealer. We're able to just simply, again, buff that stuff out and then lay on our next coat. So at this point, we're starting again with a new microfiber pad. The last one, we've rinsed it and it's soaking right now. It'll go into the laundry later. And so we're starting with the new one. We'll use this one pretty much the rest of the way through the process. So once again, we're going to go ahead and wet out that pad. And again, I'm not getting this super wet, you guys. Just damp. Just enough that basically I can tell that the pad is wet because it changes color from the sealer hitting it. And then just a quick spritz on the surface. Once again, we're just trying to lay down super thin coat, so it does not take very much of this. This is critical to get our stain resistance. Okay, your sides. Wet it out again. We'll throw that in our Ziploc bag, and we'll be ready for the next coat in another 45 minutes. So there you go.